Hey y'all, welcome to Buried Secrets. My name is Jenny, and today we are going to be discussing the case of Gannon Stauch. Many of you probably already know the details of this case. Most of you have probably heard about it. The court case is currently happening, and it is absolutely shocking. But it has been 3 years since the day Gannon Stauch was reported missing, and honestly, when I was doing my research, there was something new in every video I watched about this case, and I wanted to condense it into one and then follow up with coverage of the trial. So if you know this case, I hope you stick around for a refresh. If you know a little bit about this case, I hope you stick around to hear all the details. Either way, I will cover the court case on my channel, and I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on it. Other true crime channels have labeled this as the new Casey Anthony case. The media is covering this as the case of the century, but I am covering this case because I think that this little boy, who was only 11 years old, deserves justice, and the person who did this deserves to be held accountable. This does involve a child who lost his life, so if this is something that will trigger you in any way, please come back for another video that will not cause you any distress. This case is shocking, so let's just dive right in. Gannon Stauch was only 11 years old when he disappeared. Gannon was a very loving little boy who had fought to live from the moment that he was born. Gannon was born a micro-preemie, weighing only 1 pound. When Gannon was born, his parents, Albert Stauch, who goes by Al, and Landon Hyatt, were told that he only had a 10% chance at survival, and that if he survived, he would have mental disabilities and major health issues. Gannon proved them wrong and was a happy and healthy little boy. Gannon loved to help others. He would do anything for anybody. He was a child who always wanted to be with someone, never straying far from home on his own. Gannon took his job of being a big bubba, aka brother, to his little sister Lena, who loved to ride bikes with him, very seriously. He was caring, gentle, and kind, and had a very bright future ahead of him. Gannon lived in Colorado Springs with Al, his stepmom Leticia Stauch, his little sister Lena, and Leticia's 17-year-old daughter Harley Hunt. Landon lived in South Carolina and shared custody with Al. On January 27, 2020, Leticia made a 911 call to report that Gannon had run away from home. Gannon lived with the rule that when the streetlights came on, he was supposed to be home, and he had always followed this rule, but it had been 1 hour since the streetlights came on, and Gannon was nowhere to be found. Leticia was unable to give police much information other than letting them know that Gannon had gone out to visit a friend and never returned. Leticia was unable to give police a name of the friend, and as the hours went by, the entire neighborhood began to help search for Gannon. Everyone was expecting to find him that night. When Landon heard that Gannon was missing, she immediately flew to Colorado to help search for her son. Al, who served with the Colorado Springs-based Colorado National Guard 100th Missile Defense Brigade, was doing military training in Oklahoma at the time, and he also flew home as soon as he could to help search for Gannon. On the day that Gannon disappeared, he had not gone to school, Leticia reporting to Al that he was suffering from stomach problems and that she was going to make up an excuse to not going to work that day to help take care of him. As word spread, the entire community got involved to help find Gannon so that they could bring him home safely. His neighborhood was lined with blue flags in support of his family and to also show Gannon how much they missed him and wanted him home. Once Al got back to Colorado Springs to help search for Gannon, Leticia picked him up from the airport in a rental car, explaining to Al that she did not want to put more miles on her car, which was under lease. Landon and Al did their very first press conference after 3 days of Gannon missing, their emotion in their voices saying it all, with hope in their hearts that their little boy would return home alive. Gannon's mom described Gannon as her hero and a fighter. She remained strong and let the community know that she had hope that her little boy would return home safe and sound.
Hi, Gannon's mom, and I encourage you guys, I know many of you mothers and fathers, I encourage you just to find him. I'm so thankful for all the outpouring help that this case has brought. My son is a very loving kid. He wouldn't want harm on anybody at all. And it's so hard to just think, why is this happening to him? I have no clue, but my kid deserves to come home. My kid has a purpose. My kid has a life. And it's important to me, and it's important to everybody that's standing in this room. Gannon, Bubba, little man, mommy's hero, wherever you're at, mommy and daddy's here. And we're begging and pleading for you to come home. I know that's your biggest wish, is to see mommy and daddy standing here. We're here, Bubba. We're here for you, and I can't wait till you're found, because I have hope that you are going to be found. You are my hero. You are the reason why I have life. He's so special to me. I don't think many people can understand. My child was a 1 pound, 6 ounce baby. He had a 10% chance of survival. If he survived, he would be profoundly disabled. None of that is accurate. He's gifted and talented. Do anything for anybody. So I'm begging, I'm pleading, if anybody has any type of lead, put yourself in my situation. Ask yourself, what would you do? My Savior is a great Savior. And I know I have hope and that my son's going to be here. I'm thankful for the churches, the pastors, the outpouring support from this community, from Albert's military, family, everybody, the detectives. It was you that was sitting at the table, and you told me that 90% success rate, and you told me that I'm going to find Gannon. I believe that. It's the first time I had hope since I got that call on Monday. I have hope. So please have hope with me. I'm begging. Bring my baby home. Bubba, I love you. Mommy loves you so much. Nova loves you. Lena loves you. This room is filled with people that love you, and this community loves you too. So please come home, baby. Please come home.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Lane had said, that what an incredible community we have. I mean, everybody in here in a team, incredible team that, I came out my front door, I think it was Tuesday, and there was 300 people out there searching my neighborhood. It blew me away. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. Again, and Daddy loves you so much. Please come home.
On January 30th, 3 days after Gannon went missing, authorities issued a missing child alert, no longer classifying him as a runaway. Based off his need for medication, Colorado Springs weather conditions, it was freezing, his age, and the amount of time that had passed with nobody hearing from him. As community members and police searched for the little missing boy, people began to notice that Leticia seemed to be missing from anything having to do with finding Gannon. Most people in the true crime world know that social media doesn't often give you sympathy, and if there is something they can find or they have suspicion of you, they will not make your life easy. Sometimes it is launched at innocent people, their lives scrutinized to every last detail. But sometimes it is not. And this time, most of it went Leticia's way as red flags started to pop up everywhere. People began to notice her absence, and the world let her know their thoughts on that, which prompted her to do one of her very first interesting interviews where she begins to show that she loves to play the victim.
I am Leticia Stauch, which is Gannon's stepmother.
You've been a part of the investigation since the very first time. You were the last person to see him. Is that right?
Correct.
What What did you see when you last saw him?
Well, I'm not allowed to talk about anything with the case. I would more so be willing to talk about how the community needs to have faith and continue to work together and not make these false accusations, like the things that have been said that I've disappeared from the community. I haven't been there to help, but there's lots of reasons behind that.
Reasons like death threats, right?
Right. Death threats are one of them. My family's getting lots of death threats. We counted over 20 some death threats already. Two, my husband's ex-wife is living in our home, and of course I'm not coming home to do these things and to help with the family when I was kind of like told I couldn't. And then many other things that happened with the El Paso County Police Department, you know, and in doing the investigation I was told I wasn't complying. And could I elaborate on that?
Please do.
Yes. So I asked for an attorney during the interview, and I was denied that by them. I was held because they were blocking the door, and I was told I couldn't leave, and that if I would have touched them, they would have probably, you know, said I still wasn't complying or said I was, you know, trying to run away or something. But during the interview, I asked several times, could I stop the interview? Could I get an attorney? Could I stop the interview? Could I get an attorney? I was denied. I was told I couldn't get nothing to drink. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I mean, it was continuously that my constitutional rights were violated.
And that's why you say that they said then you weren't cooperating with the investigation.
That's why they said I wasn't cooperating at that time, correct.
And why did you ask for an attorney at the time?
Well, I asked for an attorney at the time because there was one individual, there was two really good detectives, and so I'm not, you know, going to talk bad about detectives, but the tactics they started to get when I would answer questions, they try to, you know, they're detectives, they're supposed to twist. The one main goal is to find Gannon. But during that time, some of those things made me feel uncomfortable the way they were saying things. So I immediately stopped and felt like an attorney would help me with some of the vocabulary and things like that I needed help with and understanding some of the things that they were asking.
I'm going to shift gears to what has become a huge online presence of people obviously trying to do the right thing, help find Gannon. But at the same time, sometimes it just feels like rumor mongering. Have you seen any of those comments yourself?
We have, and see, that's one of the main things we haven't been around in the public eye because I didn't want to expose my family to it if all these things were going on. You know, there was comments about Gannon getting pushed off the hike, and there was comments about this, and that's just not true. I took care of Gannon for the last 2 years in our home because his mother didn't want to do it. And I would never, never, ever hurt this child. And I know there's some questions out there about, okay, so tell me what happens. That's up to the investigations when they end up letting you guys know, but I've cooperated with them, even to the point that we were held with a gun, and my daughter, a 17-year-old who serves our country in the United States Air Force, who has never committed a crime or done anything wrong in her life, was put in handcuffs over the keys that was in her purse so they could take her car.
And they weren't in there?
They weren't even in her car, in her purse.
And
they were in my pocket.
You originally didn't even know it was the law enforcement officers?
I didn't know it was a law enforcement officer because when he came out, I guess he was putting his jacket on, and it wasn't necessarily his fault. He was adjusting and happened to catch me. But I saw the gun and I panicked originally and kind of thought, oh gosh, I got the, like, who's this guy? And then once I realized it was the sheriff's office, I was totally okay, but they still had a gun and told me they were going to shoot me. But I was really concerned about my daughter, asking why she was being detained in handcuffs and things like that, when that shouldn't even happen for a child. That shouldn't happen for someone who was standing inside of a store shopping, because we couldn't have any clothes because all of our clothes were here. If we came here and got clothes, you know, we would be harassed. So she went to purchase some underwear and things like that and was put in the handcuffs in the store, you know, and then brought out with men with guns. And that's just not okay. You know, they could have approached me and said, hi, I'm with El Paso County, can I please get this, instead of the way that it happened.
I'm just going to check your shot. Doing great. I want to make sure that we're still good on recording, still can hear you okay. Okay, yeah, sounds like we're good. Every once in a while my mic will give out, and I want to make sure that's not going to happen here. Okay. All right, and then, oh shoot, I put that on. It almost feels like, to me, like kind of a pitchfork mentality with people. Do you feel safe in southern Colorado?
Yes, this is a wonderful neighborhood. We picked this neighborhood because it felt like such a great community and the school district's great. And so I really feel safe in Colorado Springs.
But then the community seems to have turned. Is that true?
There's a lot of times that, you know, on the Ring Gap and things like that, we hear of like a burglary every day. And, you know, some of those things you can't always look into and think that it actually happened. You have to kind of like wheedle it out. But overall, the community is really good at looking out for each other and coming together in times of need.
I should try and clarify here. Not necessarily crime rates, but the way that people are reacting online to rumors about you with the search.
Oh yes, wow. The rumors have gotten so bad. I pretty much have been told at least 10 different ways that these people have these conspiracy theories. I guess they watch a lot of law shows and maybe they have all these theories on how Gannon is dead. And that's what they're saying. So I'm like, why are you saying Gannon is dead? He is not dead. We are going to find Gannon. And that's the main goal that we all have, my family has. Just because you haven't seen us, we have that same goal. And we've been out searching. My aunt has been out searching. My family has been out searching. We all have been doing that together so that we could protect each other.
How does it feel when not only you have a lost child who you are in care of, but then people blaming you for that child not being there?
You know, I'm just ready for Gannon to come home. Most importantly, for him to see his family. But second, I am going to be so ecstatic when I'm able to say to people that I hope they have a really sincere apology for all these theories that have came out online, for all the things they said that I have done or people have done. And I just want everyone to know that we're going to find Gannon. And I love him so much. I've helped taking care of him for so long.
Can you talk to me a little bit about him? I don't know him.
Gannon is so kind, and he loves to play video games. That's one of his favorite things. He loves Sonic and Mario, and you know, he's always helpful, and he was always so helpful with the dogs around the house, and we have 2 little cute dogs, and he was always like a person I could say, Gannon, can you go do this? And he would do it right away. You know, sometimes with kids we have to remind them and things like that, and that's okay, but he was so sweet and able to help anyone. He could notice when you're sick and say, are you okay? And such a kind heart.
I know you just said that you can't say anything about the investigation, so you can just say so again if you can't answer this, but is there anything we can hear about the hike? Was there a hike? That just seems like rumors right now.
You know what? Could we bring my daughter up here? Because she can go and say that, you know, she came home from work after the hike and she can verify that Gannon was at our home.
Okay, yeah, that's fine with me. If she doesn't want to, that's okay, but you're allowed to ask her. Sound okay so far?
Yes. I need Harley. Because they want you to verify was Gannon at home after the hike. Because you didn't go to the hike, but you came home from work.
Do you want me to just say yes?
No, just answer the question. Yes, you came home from work and you can verify Gannon was at home. Yeah. I told her she didn't have to be too in-depth because she is still, you know, a child. But I want to make sure that someone knows that there's another person to verify that Gannon.
Sure.
Does she need to hold this?
No, that's as so long as she's close.
Close.
So just stay close. And yeah, actually shift a tiny bit that way. Just half inch that way.
Okay.
Perfect, okay. And then, can you say and spell your name for me real fast?
Harley Hunt, Harley Hunt, Hunt.
Perfect. And so just don't look away from her because the mic's not that way, so you don't have to like face down into it, but
Okay.
just don't look away. I was just asking about the hike.
Yes, so I came home later that evening. I was at work, and I can verify that he was there that night.
So there was a hike that you guys went on, but then you guys came home.
Yes.
Where'd you guys go hiking?
Garden of the Gods.
Oh, that's okay. I guess when
And then we ate Burger King afterwards, so, you know.
there you go.
Yeah.
And then it just was, I'm gonna go to play at a friend's house.
Can we step off of here? I don't want her on the...
No worries.
Okay.
Am I good?
Yeah.
You did great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, do it again.
And then it was just, I'm off to go to play at a friend's house.
Unfortunately, I'm not able to comment on that anymore, and for that reason is because some things have been turned and twisted, and you know, that was one of those stories you were talking about where people say things. We had to hear things like who would let their child go out at dark and things like that, and that's just why I don't want to answer that. If I had to give, I'm not gonna say that part.
That's okay.
Never mind.
That's right.
I could take that out.
I understand that it gets tricky with
Yeah.
legal stuff. Do you feel like I asked you what I need to? Do you feel like this is going to help kind of turn the tide of what feels like a witch hunt, in my opinion?
I hope, am I on camera now?
You are
okay,
still.
Okay. I think that a lot of people can see that I'm not missing and see that I am being cooperative, but to me, it's okay that they think those things because the way someone thinks about me, I don't have a problem with that. My main thing is I would never want someone to think that I would hurt Gannon or any of the children in our home, because that's just not the case. I've spent my whole entire life working so hard in education. There was even things online that was talking about my education license and I shouldn't even be a teacher, and they just didn't know that. Like, we moved on a military move and I didn't finish out my contract, so I gave up my license in that state. It had nothing to do with any criminal activity, you know, or any of those things. And it just got blown out of proportion on my professional status, you know. And
do you feel like these are just internet detectives who think they know what they're doing?
it definitely is. And, you know, here's the thing that kind of saddens me. It's like, if you're going to talk about someone like that and have a witch hunt out for them, why would you even care, like, about doing those things? Because this is a child. You're telling me that you're just as mean, you're just as hateful to talk about someone else like that. That's how I feel. Like, we just should not. We should all come together and wait until the end and see what happens, because Gannon's going to come home.
Any message for Gannon?
The message for Gannon I have is, Gannon, when you get here, you'll be able to truly tell what happened. And then I really hope I get a sincere apology from everyone who has made all those things, especially from my husband.
We just wanted to add a message to Gannon from my family, is that we love you and miss you, and we hope that you come home soon. And Gannon, I can't wait till you can come home and let everyone know that you're okay. We love you.
It is safe to say that Leticia never got her apology. Days turned into weeks, and Alan Landon continued to be hopeful that Gannon would be found. Investigators and community members continued to search in and around the home, and later they moved their search to areas as far away as 45 miles. This was based off evidence they uncovered and tips from their tip line. During this time, investigators remained tight-lipped on what kind of evidence they had uncovered, why they were focusing on certain areas, but with the promise that Gannon would be found. The first indication that this was going to turn into a murder case was when Leticia Stauch was arrested in March 2020 on suspicion of first-degree murder. In addition to first-degree murder, Leticia was arrested on the suspicion of child abuse resulting in death, tampering with the deceased body, and tampering with evidence. The arrest rocked the entire community and devastated both Landon and Albert. On the arrest warrant, detectives cited the many different stories that Leticia had given them throughout the investigation, all of which contradicted each other. At the time of Leticia's arrest, they did not have Gannon's body, but they felt that they had enough evidence to charge Leticia. The investigation continued with Leticia in custody, but nobody was prepared for the truth when it came out. On January 26th, there is what is referred to as the candle incident, where Gannon had accidentally knocked over a candle and Leticia accidentally recorded the aftermath of that incident. In it, Gannon was crying and Leticia was extremely upset about it.
Well, devastating. Initially, Scott, I can't lie, when the TMZ information...
Gannon, I promise it's the last time I'm going to ask you. I'm just freaked out, okay? Are you sure you didn't do it on purpose?
I did it.
Okay, you promise. You promise. Pinky promise.
Pinky.
Okay, all right. So, listen. We're going to have to sell stuff to fix it, okay? So, we figure out what we got to sell. We can sell the sofa. We can sell whatever, because we got to get it fixed. So, lady, don't be mad at us and kick us out of the house, okay? You got it? You got it?
I'm just worried about my
Okay, shh. Listen. So tomorrow...
I'm not sure that I believe Leticia's story on what happened. I honestly feel like she had something to do with either the spill or the burns. In Leticia's statement, she stated that she had every intention of covering up the fire that Gannon had accidentally started to protect his feelings on whatever punishment he was going to get, and that her and Gannon were going to rectify the situation so that he would stop crying. On the morning of the 27th, the day that Leticia had told Al that Gannon was having stomach issues and that she was going to make an excuse to not come in, Leticia texted her place of employment. She had a new job at a school as an assistant teacher. At 4:37 a.m., she texted them and told them that she was unable to come in because her stepdad had been hit by a car. Leticia was fired from this job 3 days later because she had some fabrications on her resume. Then she contacted Gannon's school and let them know that he was unable to come into school because he was sick. She then takes 2 photos of Gannon lying in bed at 8:13 a.m. and 8:17 a.m. One is taken from the doorway and the other from the foot of his bed. At 10:15 a.m., both Gannon and Leticia are seen exiting the home. In the driveway is Al's red Nissan Frontier and Leticia's black Volkswagen Tiguan. Leticia leaves her phone at home that morning, which is highly unusual for her to do. The neighbor next to Leticia and Al's home stated that he saw Gannon when they left the house and reported him looking tired, drugged, and sick, to the point that Gannon could barely walk. They hopped in the truck and she takes Gannon to a Petco in northern Colorado Springs after passing several closer Petcos. She purchases 3 dog coats. Gannon's phone texts Harley at this time and says, "Leticia's phone is left at home. If you need anything, text me." For the next 2 hours, the Nissan and Leticia's movements are unknown. At 1:22 p.m., Leticia goes back to the Petco that they had just left without Gannon present. At 12:06 p.m., Al sends a message to Gannon that says, "Hey buddy," and that text goes unanswered until 1:21 p.m., 1 minute before Leticia re-enters the Petco, that says, "Can I play Zelda at least?" To which Al replies, "Not today." At 1:43 p.m., Leticia searches, "Can my parents find my cell phone if it is off?" on Gannon's phone. Leticia returns home at 2:19 and backs the truck into the driveway, and it is stated she likely returned with Gannon, and they enter the home at 2:22 p.m. Leticia unlocks her phone at 2:45 p.m. Between 2:45 p.m. and 3:15 p.m., something happens before Lena, the youngest daughter, arrives home from school. At this time, Leticia tells Lena that Gannon is sick, she is not to go into his room, and she sends her outside to play. Detectives believe, due to the evidence and blood spatter found, that Gannon died in his bedroom in the afternoon, and Leticia took steps to cover that up. There is a lot of movement in the home at this time that is caught on the security CCTV, and the back door of the home is opened and closed 10 times. Gannon had been shot in the jaw, stabbed in the chest, and stabbed in the back. He had 18 defensive wounds on his arms and hands. He was wrapped in 2 blankets, one being his shark blanket, and another blanket with a matching pillow that also had 2 bullets in it. He was then stuffed into a suitcase that the family owned. At some point, Leticia moves her car into the garage, and Gannon was placed into the trunk of the car along with a particle board, later found where detectives believe Leticia first dumped Gannon's body with the suitcase. There was blood found in the car, and Leticia made the excuse that Gannon had cut his foot and put his foot up on the bumper of the car. She is the queen of excuses, you guys. Harley gets off work around 4:15 p.m. and arrives home around 4:52 p.m. She picks up Lena and they head out in her Volkswagen. Around 5:10 p.m., Leticia texts Harley and asks her to pick up baking soda, trash bags, and 2 things of carpet powder. Harley Hunt was later uncooperative with police and refused to speak to them about any of this. Leticia now has the time to clean up because she is home alone. She now moves the black Antigua back into the garage, and when Harley gets home, Leticia begins to clean the crime scene, trying to scrub the carpet. Later, police used luminol and found that Gannon's blood had seeped all the way through the carpet to the cement below. Then the 911 call happens around 6:55 p.m. She must have been satisfied with her cleanup at that time. Instead of calling Gannon in as a missing boy, she calls him in as a runaway, which is a non-emergency. This is when Leticia states that Gannon had gone to his friend's house, where she was unable to give any names of his friends, and she also tells detectives that she had gone to neighbors looking for Gannon, but was unable to tell them what houses or who she talked to. A neighbor stated that Leticia loves to talk, and during a conversation, she said nothing about Gannon missing. At 10:09 p.m., El Paso police arrive at the house, and they go in and search the house for Gannon. They head into the garage while Leticia is chatting away, even making jokes, and when a sergeant checked the garage with a flashlight, where it was stated he did find a suitcase, but that the suitcase was not opened or checked. The Tiguan remained at home that night with Gannon's body inside. On January 28th, Leticia drives her Tiguan to the airport to pick up Al. Leticia gets out of the car and rents a Kia Rio and picks up Al, stating that she is worried about putting miles on her car, telling Al that it is parked at a school and not at the airport where she left it. They drive home. At 12:27 p.m., she searches, "Can Nintendo find my Switch?" It is reported that Leticia was outside that day talking to neighbors, smiling and laughing like she was at a barbecue. That night, Leticia goes back to the airport to pick up her Tiguan. Now she goes for a drive, and from 7 p.m. to 11:40 p.m., she heads to a new subdivision called Falcon and puts her cell phone on airplane mode. Then she heads to a parking lot where she remains for about a half hour. Leticia then heads north of Colorado Springs into Douglas County and checks an area out where she puts Gannon in the suitcase and the particle board. Authorities found the particle board on February 16th, but no suitcase at that time. Leticia then continues to drive and ends up at Massage Envy, where Harley works, but Harley was at home. Leticia then calls Harley to come and pick her up around 10:30 p.m. And while she waits, she texts an investigator at 10:35 p.m. and says, "What do you want from me? Because I have nothing. One of your very own leaked to me what you guys were doing. I did nothing and am being set up. I am not really even sure other than being told that by another blue with El Paso. I was told that I couldn't go home to sleep, and on top of that, men were sent to my home with a minor female, and she was forced to stay there to not even leave for food. Every conversation that said even at that moment I can hear inside, 'What do you want from me?' Leticia and Harley then do not arrive home until 1:30 a.m. despite it being a 20-minute drive home. The next morning, Harley has to work, and she gives Leticia a ride to her car at the Massage Envy parking lot at 9 a.m. Leticia is supposed to meet with investigators at 10 a.m., but she has to clean her car because she had not had it since she picked up Al, so she decides to go to the car wash. Her Tiguan is seen at 11:30 a.m. at the car wash, and she then finally appears at the sheriff's office at noon. Leticia is interviewed and comes in with a notebook. This is when Leticia changes her story and states that she had been held at gunpoint by a man named Eduardo on the day Gannon went missing from their home. Leticia then tells them that Eduardo SA'd her and abducted Gannon. She admits that after this happened, she cleaned the area and then called to report Gannon missing. Leticia then asks for an attorney because she wants help with the vocabulary, and then states that her First Amendment rights were violated. Investigators seize Leticia's cell phone and apply for a warrant to collect DNA samples from her. Leticia then begins to stuff napkins down her pants, and she says she is struggling to breathe and having heart problems. She is rushed to the hospital. I still don't understand why she was shoving napkins down her pants, but if y'all have any ideas, please let me know. While at the hospital offered to do an SA kit, and Leticia, of course, denied that. Leticia has no life-threatening health concerns, and she slips out of the building without informing law enforcement. This was legal for her to do because she was not under arrest at that moment. An unknown person picks her up and she reunites with Harley a couple of blocks away. On Thursday, January 30th, Gannon's status is changed from runaway to endangered missing child, and a massive search begins to find Gannon because the status change allows the FBI and the National Center for Missing and Endangered Children to get involved and assist in the search. Leticia's aunt rents an Ultima because Leticia's car has been seized. Authorities place a tracker on the vehicle. Around 4 p.m., Leticia goes back to Douglas County where she left Gannon, and she now picks up the suitcase, puts Gannon in the Ultima, and leaves the particle there. This is day 5 of Gannon missing, and detectives were able to determine that both the vehicles that Leticia drove had visited this area, so they found the particle board. During the interview, Leticia had stated that she could not go home because Landon was there, so her and Harley go out and they are seen shopping for underwear and other items. Leticia was not allowed to go home because Landon was there, and so Leticia allegedly left Gannon in the trunk of the Ultima while they were shopping. On February 1st, Leticia rents a budget van and she leaves with Harley and the suitcase. She then heads to Florida. On the trip, she decides 2 hours in to stop in and get a phone in Trinidad, Colorado. She then drives 20 hours to Pensacola, Florida from Colorado. On February 3rd, a neighbor comes forward with surveillance video that shows Leticia leaving with Gannon and later returning home without him, which contradicts her story. At 11:56 p.m., Leticia checks into Candlewood Suites using an address in South Carolina. She sleeps about 4 hours and drives 3 miles away to drop the suitcase, where her phone pinged at 4:16 a.m. near a bridge. It's the Scandia River Bridge, where Gannon would later be found in the suitcase in a fetal position. He was found 1 month after he died by construction workers. Leticia then changes her Facebook photo about 4 days later of Gannon waving goodbye and jumping into a river. Leticia and Harley then head to Orlando and then South Carolina. One thing that is important to note is Leticia never returned to the hotel, and Harley was with her that entire time. If Harley did not know what was going on, then how do you throw a suitcase over a bridge without her knowing what was happening? Harley has not been charged, and it has been stated that she was not involved in the murder of Gannon, but there are questions on how much Harley knew. Between February 14th through the 15th, Leticia gives Al 5 different stories about what happened that day. Leticia tells Al that when ESPO, the police department, came into the house on January 27th, that the abductor was still there, and she tried to signal to ESPO that there was somebody in the residence. Leticia said she arrived home on the day of Gannon's disappearance, unarmed the security alarm, entered the basement, and a man named Eduardo was in the basement, attacked her, and pointed a gun at her. She said as he held her at gunpoint, he allowed her to go upstairs to Lena, who had just arrived home. She sent Lena outside to play and then went back to the basement where Eduardo assaulted her. She hit her head and claimed she must have passed out. She stated she knew the man's name because a paper fell out of his pocket with his identification on it. Investigators found no injuries to her head. Leticia then changes her story again, and she says that Gannon jumped on Eduardo's back and that Eduardo was able to fling Gannon off of him into a wall. After Eduardo finished assaulting Leticia, he pointed the gun at Gannon and demanded Leticia bring him a suitcase. She brought down a cardboard box and a suitcase. Eduardo then assaulted her again, and she hit her head and blacked out again. She said that Gannon was riding his bicycle and hit his head off Highway 105 and was then abducted by a man. When she knew detectives uncovered that she had visited a new subdivision, she stated that she drove around construction sites trying to find someone to help her with the carpet that Gannon had accidentally burnt, and this is where she met Eduardo. She told him her issue, and they decided that they would fix the carpet the following day, the day Gannon disappeared. When detectives issued a search warrant on Leticia's phone and they examined her search engine, which I have to say is pretty bizarre, this is what they found. She searched some of it. If you are not involved in your kids' lives, you are shitty. My husband's ex-wife does nothing for her kids. I wonder if my husband's ex-wife is sending me a card because I raise her kids. I wonder if my husband's ex-wife is sending me a Valentine's Day card because I take care of her kids. One day, someone will wish they treated you differently. Why should my husband choose me over family? Find me a guy who wants me to take care of his kids and get paid. It's crappy some people don't care for their kids or buy them presents. My son burned the carpet. How do I fix it? What is the process for a runaway child? Police steps for missing child. Can Nintendo find my Switch? Then investigators found the search history for Leticia's phone, which included, I feel like I am just a nanny and not a mom. Husband uses me to babysit his kids. Are there any free money to move out of a bad situation? Find a new husband. Find a guy without kids. On February 18th, 2020, Leticia calls a company called fakepolygraph.com, hoping to get the results of a test she took that she sent in. But she is told that her report was blocked by management based on the content of the questions. She is told by an employee that with illegal activity, they reserve the right to not send the fake report. On February 28, 2020, a judge signs off on the arrest warrant for Leticia. On March 2, 2020, Leticia is arrested in Myrtle Beach on a warrant for first-degree murder, child abuse resulting in death, and evidence tampering. She was extradited back to Colorado. On March 4th, 2020, during transport as they were going through Kansas, Leticia slipped through her handcuffs and assaulted a police officer. She was transported to a local hospital at that time for reasons unknown, and then her extradition continued until she reached Colorado Springs. On March 5th, 2020, Al files for divorce from Leticia and says the marriage is irreversibly broken in his filing. You think? On March 11th, 2020, Leticia is formally charged with first-degree murder in an El Paso courtroom. On March 17th, 2020, bridge inspectors with the Florida Department of Transportation found a suitcase under a bridge while doing construction. They open the suitcase and find what appears to be a body wrapped in blankets. This turns out to be the body of missing Gannon Stauch. Detectives found that Gannon had been shot in the jaw, stabbed in the chest and back, and suffered skull fractures. It was evident that Gannon had once again fought for his life, defensive wounds all over his body, and unfortunately he did not overpower the monster who murdered him. On June 4th of 2020, Leticia then conducted a plan to escape jail. Leticia sought help from another inmate at El Paso County Jail through both a conversation and letters, in which she laid out a plan to break out her cell window with a broom handle. The inmate reported Leticia not wanting to get involved and stated that Leticia probably asked her because she was Italian and kind of a bad boy. I mean, granted, if I wanted to escape jail, I would probably also want an Italian accomplice. Leticia offered to give the inmate money, knowing that she had access to a broom. In the letter, Leticia wrote, "You have my word to make sure we are MIA. I got us covered." When authorities did a shakedown of Leticia's cell, they found letters addressed to her daughter saying that if something came up on the news saying that she was no longer in the jail or missing, to not be afraid. On January 19th, 2021, there was a mental health evaluation done on Leticia, and she was found to be competent and able to stand trial. On February 21st, 2021, Leticia wrote this letter to a judge, changing her story once again and saying that she was threatened by investigators in the bathroom away from recordings and that 2 men were responsible for the death of Gannon. Dear Judge Warner, on 2/19/2021, I was unable to talk with Judge Bain about my conflicts with my defense team due to 1, the actual privacy of the booth and the transport over. I explained in detail to him, expressing my concerns of privacy. 2, I had a very difficult morning mentally because I am not mentally well. One of the main issues with my attorney is their lack of ability to gather evidence. Due to this, I find little value in the term expert. First, they were unable to obtain my mental health records from Charleston, South Carolina, when I finally paid a firm in South Carolina to obtain them. In 2016, I was diagnosed and received treatment before work for over 28 hours of care. The school district even provided extra services and later let me medically resign due to the ongoing reality breaks. In 2019, I was hospitalized in Canada, crossing the border for 2 days, and completed more OR treatment when I returned. I tell you this because it sets the stage for why I cannot work with my attorneys. I signed release forms for them to get all of this information so they would have a better understanding of why I'm all over the place some days. I asked them to use the info from a non-biased doctor who worked with me for more than 2 hours, but instead they sent a lady who is clearly an actress and friends with the DA. She spoke about him in an unprofessional manner, their history, and his election. Now, I'm sure all this was true, but I thought she worked to make me look like a perjurous individual. Instead, it was malfeasance on their part. I have included several reasons to support my claim as I keep a timeline of these events. Communication is broken beyond repair. I explained these issues to Judge Bain, including the lack of access and visitations in complete detail. Inconsiderate of evidence. Since March 2020, I asked my attorneys to preserve the GameStop footage to locate the Texas police officer whom I spoke with and to get the cruise passenger list. Instead, they spent months contacting my family for mitigation. When asked certain things, they kept saying they will let the investigators know. 1 year later, same answer. My evidence. I haven't physically seen any while being held at CJC for 1 year. Yes, COVID, but inmates were still being held as our constitutional rights were adjusted. Overlooking statute and evidence. They overlooked the competency stature about video recording human error. Okay, but this happens often with evidence in which me, the non-expert, has to provide corrections to evidence. My judge. They filed that motion knowing this county would not grant me new attorneys to sabotage my chances of a trial by judge. They knew I wanted to present evidence to him without exposing any info on my son's father. However, they created incorrect conflicts instead of addressing the real issues. They could have filed the pro se only instead of talking about my defense to sabotage my trial by judge. Defenses. Indeed, I am innocent, but I will not put myself or others in danger running the defense against my biological son when the system is letting 2 men run free who are involved. One is a prominent member of an independent business. They use the NGRI to get a hearing knowing I'm not guilty to cover up their lack of representation. Although I had bouts of insanity, and still do, I did not murder or abuse anyone, nor would that be a defense, because it's my understanding that you actually did do it. However, I will protect my bio son, and I will protect the drugs and violence documented from my stepson. The truth is, the court is holding the wrong person and for the wrong crimes. This whole process has been nefarious, from denying me an attorney, threatening me in the bathroom away from cameras to confess, taking advantage of me, being delusional, threatening my other kids' freedom, or else. The state has done in this wrongful incarceration. I will continue to be an advocate for myself because I am not a murderer, and the level that the prosecution goes through to promote a wrongful conviction is absurd. Truth is, they could see a video from someone else and they would dismiss that person as a lunatic. They have far too much investigated in this wrongful incarceration to admit that they were wrong. For these reasons, and because my defense team is in cahoots with them, I am left with no other choice but to represent myself. Denying me my rights under the Constitution has happened throughout this process, from the detectives, the jail, and now my legal team. Every day I'm getting worse mentally due to inadequate representation and being held hostage for a crime I did not commit. These are my conflict issues and my reasons for asking to go pro se. As always, thank you for your time, Leticia. This girl, she comes up with so many lies. It's just absolutely absurd that she even believes herself, let alone that she believes that other people are going to believe her. On February 26, 2021, a judge granted Leticia the right to represent herself. April 30th, 2021, the divorce between Al and Leticia is finalized. Congratulations, Al. We are all so sorry for your loss, and we wish you nothing but happiness and love in your future. On May 3rd, Leticia is appointed new public defenders after deciding that she was not going to represent herself. Selfishly, I wanted to watch that, but anyways, on September 23rd, 2021, a judge decides that this case will go to trial. On February 11th, 2022, Leticia changes her plea to not guilty by reason of insanity. When Leticia's first mental health evaluation came back, the defense asked if they could have their own mental health expert, and a trial needed to be held for the judge to rule if it would be allowed. At this hearing in October of 2022, Leticia showed up an hour late after refusing to go. The judge gave a strict ruling that if Leticia refused to attend her court hearings again, that any and all force could be used to get her into the courtroom at the correct time. Again, Leticia made herself the victim, and she stated that it was because of hygiene issues that kept her from coming, and alleged that the inmates weren't being allowed to have toilet paper. She also complained about the lack of air conditioning in the transport van. I just can't with this one, you guys. It's not the Hilton on wheels, honey. You're in a transport van to bring you to a trial where you stuffed a child into a suitcase after taking his life, and you think you have the right to complain about air conditioning? So that leads up to this week where the trial is underway, and it's insane and it's heartbreaking. And I will be doing a video on that next. I have some expert insight to give you, but I know many of us have our eyes on the case because this girl is unpredictable. Will she be the next Casey Anthony and get away with the murder of this sweet little boy? Or will her true colors come out? I honestly think this case is also really like the case of Kyron Horman, who was allegedly murdered by his stepmom, and no charges were ever brought because they never had enough evidence despite knowing it was her. Tell me what you think of this and hit that like button if you enjoyed this case. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. Stay safe, y'all, and take care.